if you think, of course, this world has gone bonkers just because of what the unsaved and sinners are doing out there, this world is probably bonkers more so because Christians are not being salt and light as they should be.
Thank you for tuning in to the Removing Barriers podcast. I'm Jay.
And I'm MCG.
And we're attempting to remove barriers so we can all have a clear view of the cross.
This is episode 190 of the Removing Barriers podcast. And this is the 11th in the series of This World Has Gone Bonkers. And in this episode, we have lined up a number of news articles that we think show that this world is bonkers.
Hi, this is Jay. MCG and I would like for you to help us remove barriers by going to removingbarriers.net and subscribing to receive all things Removing Barriers. If you'd like to take your efforts a bit further and help us keep the mics on, consider donating at removingbarriers.net/donate. Removing Barriers, a clear view of the cross.
All right, Jay, what bonkers article do you have for us starting out here?
My first article is titled, Gavin Newsom Catches Heat for Bizarre Shimmy and Smile During Live TV Interview About LA Fires. This is from MSN.com, although it doesn't matter because they all tend to share their sources. I'll just begin reading it from the beginning. It says he's fidgeting while LA burns. California Governor Gavin Newsom is getting raked over the coals online for his strange shimmy during a local TV interview addressing the ongoing fire crisis in Los Angeles County. He was being interviewed by local Fox News anchors or news reporters, and they asked him about what the plans were for the devastating loss of both property and life that's occurring in Los Angeles as a result of these fires that have been burning uncontrollably. And he begins to do this very odd dance with his shoulders while he's saying, oh, I was talking to the governor of, and you could see that he couldn't remember who the governor was. So he just said the governor of Hawaii. And we're looking at options of talking to spectators and real estate developers and real estate agents and all these types of things in order to, obviously he didn't say this, but the idea is to have them come in and buy up the property. And all the while he's saying this, he's doing this weird shoulder dance. And he has this awkward smile on his face, almost like he's gleeful about it. So there's a disconnect between what he's talking about and what his body is doing. Now, I'm no body language expert, but if you were to watch him on mute, you would think he was talking about something that he's excited to go do. He's excited and he's dancing left and right, bouncing his shoulders up and down. And there's this like weird, awkward, plastered, weird smile on his face. But the words that are coming out of his mouth are he's talking to spectators and people who can come in to buy up all of this property. And he was raked over the coals for it. So I'll continue reading. So while discussing the potential of property speculators swooping into the once coveted neighborhoods afflicted by the fires, Newsom grins ear to ear and does an effective shoulder shimmy while trying to calm residents' fears. I was just talking to Josh Green, the governor of down in Hawaii, Newsom says with an apparent chuckle and a toothy smile. Yeah, we're smiling and chuckling while LA burns. Anyway, the well-gelled governor. I'm sorry. That's funny that they put a little dig in there about his hair. And I think that's appropriate because he did the same thing during the COVID lockdowns, did he not? While he locked California down, California had some of the most draconian lockdown measures during the pandemic, and he was out doing whatever he felt like while the citizens were locked down. And we see that he's doing something similar here, where people have been negatively affected by the fires, obviously. And he's gleeful about it and already talking to people about buying up the properties. And I wonder if, I'm not going to go conspiratorial or anything, but I wonder if, some people wonder, I should say, if there was some deliberate element to this where it's a sort of transfer of wealth in the sense that, okay, if we burn up the property, people who can afford to swoop in and buy the property, they will, and push people off of their land, out of their houses. what I'm saying, I'm not saying that. I'm saying a lot of people are looking at Newsom's interaction with the local news and saying, hey, this looks deliberate. You have thousands of acres on fire and you're shimmying and smiling and talking about spectators coming in. I'm sorry, not spectators, speculators coming in. I don't know what to say about that except a complete disregard or lack of care for your constituents, for your people. And I had to laugh at the well-gelled governor because I think that's an intentional dig on him, that he cares so much about himself and about his faithful cronies and not so much about the people of California. The article continues. He shimmied his shoulders up and down while saying that the governor of Hawaii had some ideas about some land use concerns that he has around speculators coming in, buying up properties and the like. So we're ready. We're already working with our legal team to move those things forward, he says, and we'll be presenting those in a matter of days, not weeks. Meanwhile, the reservoirs are empty. There are the local fire departments and everyone, all of the emergency response to the area are taxed. They are at their limit. And the fires at the time of his interview showed no signs of abating. Recently, there was a bit of a reprieve with the cooler weather and a break in the winds, but LA is still on fire. So,
yeah, I personally don't know what to make of this. I think there's a lot of things going on here in terms of California being governed by folks who believe in climate change to an extent to which they would try to do drastic things to reverse it, and to the extent where they have poor forest management, they have poor management of their water system, they have fire chief that it's questionable whether or not they're qualified to do the job or not. And they have a governor who support all that. And Los Angeles has a mayor that supports all that as well. So I don't know what to make of this. If there's anyone to blame, I would say there's a lot of people in line, including Governor Gavin Newsom, the LA city mayor, I don't remember her name at this point, to be blamed. But he's saying coming in and buying up land. Of course, I don't know much about LA. I've only been there once, and that was like an overnight stay after flying several hours from Fiji. So I don't know much about LA. But wasn't it mostly rich people property that was burned anyway?
A lot of rich people did lose property, but mixed in with all of those rich people were regular Americans who were probably house poor. So they had a very nice house, but they didn't have much else.
Or they have generational inheritance or something.
Right.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I really can't speak to this. What I do know, what I've heard, is that State Farm, which is the largest insurer out there in California, recently, this was a couple of months ago before the fire, they were prevented by California government to raise premiums or raise whatever so they can get more money. So therefore, a lot of homeowners didn't have fire insurance anymore. So the way I'm understanding it now that this fire has taken place, well, that leave a lot of people without fire insurance. So that means they won't be able to get insurance to rebuild their house along that line because it was destroyed by fire. And that's another thing as well. Insurance companies have really suffered. A number of insurance companies have pulled out of California. Insurance companies have really suffered in California. Are
you mean as a result of the fire or before?
Before, because of their policies, not because of the fire, but because of their policies. I know many car insurance companies have pulled out and many other stuff. Patrick Beck-David on his podcast talk about this all the time, the stuff that's going on in California. And he has a vested interest in California because he lived there most of his life. But I really can't speak much towards this fire, except it seems to me that there's a lot of dominoes in place that are falling. And I don't know, should he be looking into selling land? If it is true with the insurance, a lot of people didn't have fire insurance because of their policies and they pulled the fire insurance. A lot of people might not be able to rebuild. But again, I don't know the laws, but if your house burned down and you don't have insurance to cover whatever destroyed the house, that means the bank's not going to get the money. So that means either going to be foreclosed or something like that. I'm going to go to the limb and say mainly in California, at least in LA, the land is what
The
worth,
land, yep.
worth way more than the property on it. You know, for most part, that's not true everywhere in the country, but of course they say it's location, location, location.
Mm-hmm.
So the land probably might have a greater value than the structure that was on it. Again, I don't know that much about LA real estate, except I know Hollywood is out there and housing they're expensive. So depends on how much they own their property. They may walk away breaking even, or they might walk away on a short sale or something of the land, and maybe hopefully the governor and maybe even the President Trump at this point, would say, hey, we're going to force the banks to accept whatever their investor pay for the property so you don't end up with still owing on a mortgage that is burned.
Well, what is your first article of a bunkers?
All right, I have one here from the Christian Post, and it's entitled Satanic Temple Open Religious, quote unquote, Abortion Clinic Promotes Abortion Ritual. So that's where we're going, folks.
Oh, boy.
The Satanic Temple opened a second telehealth abortion facility to provide what it describes as religious abortion services, and sees the killing of preborn babies as part of its destruction ritual. Despite its name, TST is not affiliated with the Church of Satan, an organization founded by Anton LaVey, I guess his last name is, in the 1980s. TST also has its headquarters in Salem, Massachusetts, where it holds 2 virtual Satanic Temple services each week. TST announced in a press release provided to the Christian Post that this new 24/7 telehealth abortion facility, Right to Life Satanic Abortion Clinic, will open in Virginia.
Oh, my.
Women will be charged a fee to obtain abortion-inducing drugs, but the group claims it will help pay for some travel-related expenses. In a TSC document shared with the Christian Post, the group claims that abortion is part of a destruction ritual that serves as a protective right. The document adds that preparation for the ritual include reading or listening to stories of people who advocate for legal abortion to subdue any stigmas one might feel. Erin Hellion, the executive director of TST, told Christian Post that the group has received funding from donors, which enable it to open the Virginia dispensary, while TST said it hasn't partnered with any outside organization to operate its telehealth clinics. The group does work with online pharmacy Honeybee Health. Our staff virtually meet with each patient over a series of online visits to ensure the safety of each patient, including follow-up meetings, Hellian said. Our staff thoroughly discuss the potential risks with each patient, and for this reason, we urge each patient to know where their closest medical facility may be located in the unlikely event that complication may arise. She continued, we do not agree with the notion that telehealth care puts patients at risk. Instead, we argue that by expanding care and access, telehealth clinics like ours can save lives. Save whose life? I guess not the baby. Regarding the disposal of the baby remains following a chemical abortion which induced a miscarriage, Hellion did not specifically answer what they advise women to do. Instead, she asserts that most chemical abortions occur before 11 to 12 weeks, which she said results in heavy bleeding that she likened to period. She added that most women will take time to recover by wearing a pad. Miscarriages, however, even at 3 to 5 weeks, often last hours and are accompanied by severe, painful cramping and excessive hemorrhage. Abortion is among TST's many advocacy campaigns and argues that it is a religious right. Following the overturning of Roe v. Wade in June 2022, the 1973 Supreme Court decision that legalized abortion nationwide, TST opened a religious abortion clinic in New Mexico in February 2023. Anyways, there's more, but I hope now, especially Christians that are listening and even advocating for abortion, especially I know when this first came out, when the Supreme Court did that and everything during the midterms of the Biden presidency, seemingly a lot of Christian, especially Christian women, Christian grandmothers, wanted their granddaughters to have the right to this and all those things. Hope they can see that now, at least prayerfully, that they can see, no, this is a demonic thing.
Sure.
The facility, named the Samuel Alito's Mom's Satanic Abortion Clinic, named after the Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito, who delivered the ruling that overturned Roe, has offered 100 abortions to New Mexico women since its opening. The average cost is $91, according to TST. Multiple pro-life advocates and abortionists have expressed concern that ordering abortion drugs online puts the health and safety of women at risk. Among their concern is a lack of an in-person consultant with a doctor to learn how far along they are or determine if the woman's pregnancy is ectopic. Women who undergo the abortion pill regimen might also experience several side effects, according to the Mayo Clinic. Side effects of the abortion pill regimen can include vaginal bleeding, sweating, vomiting, and pain in various parts of the body. In a March interview with the Christian Post, Elizabeth Juliet told the outlet that she ended up on the bathroom floor in a pool of blood after taking abortion-inducing drugs. The woman has shared her abortion story outside of the U.S. Supreme Court during oral arguments for a case centered around abortion pill regulations. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. There's some more, but I'm going to leave it there. The evil that this is. And the fact is now they claim it's religious right and they have no shame saying, it's their Satanic Temple. And abortion is one of our rituals.
What I find terrible about this as well is how they are lying to the women about what a miscarriage actually is like. I've experienced several miscarriages and none of them, whether they were early on or later on, were like heavy periods. That is a serious understatement of what happens when you have a miscarriage. Now, I would imagine if you induce or cause the baby to die and you have a miscarriage, which is typically what happens when you take the abortion pill, you are not going to have a heavy period. That is very much a lie. In fact, I'm reading here and it says that when they give the woman the pill, now, first of all, as the article said, they don't try to find out how far along the woman is. They don't try to find out if the pregnancy is ectopic. They don't care. They simply want you to have access to these poisons that would terminate the life of the baby. And if you are looking women in the face and telling them, oh, it's like having a heavy period, that's egregious because number one, it's not true. And number two, people have died because they've taken the pill under the understanding that this is just going to be like any heavy period. And complications arise and they can't get medical care before it becomes a sepsis sort of situation where the illness and the infection and everything else that happens becomes systemic because they thought, oh, it's just a heavy period. And so when it's over, there is no checking to see if all of the tissue has been delivered. There's no follow-up care. And if all the tissue hasn't been delivered, it's certainly going to necrotize and develop all sort of issues that can ultimately kill the woman. And it has. So to lie to people about this issue, all in the name of your choice, is, they're right to call it satanic. There's no other name to describe that. Kill the child and don't care about the mother. And I find that absolutely repulsive.
Well, even more sad part about this is that they're probably going to win in courts because they're claiming religious rights. And they say, hey, we're the Satanic Temple. It's part of our ritual, unfortunately. But what's your next article?
Well, I guess I have to bounce back from that one a little bit. That is terrible. Okay. My next article has to do with the former American president, President Joe Biden, and his declaration that the 28th Amendment is the law of the land. Now, he took to the official White House.gov website, and I'm sure all of the attached social media outlets, to declare just 2 days or so before the inauguration of President Donald J. Trump that the Equal Rights Amendment, which is the 28th Amendment, was the law of the land. And for him to say that, he's saying that it has been ratified and is actually a part of the Constitution. And that wasn't the case at all. And I have to wonder what was happening in the White House in the last few days of his presidency. Were they just kind of letting the new interns run around and push buttons and stuff? Because you can't just declare something to be the law of the land when it's not. It hasn't gone through the ratification process necessary for it to become an amendment. But I'll go ahead and read the article. I'm going to be reading from Wikipedia about what the Equal Rights Amendment is and what the process has been so far in order to at least try to get it to be a part of the Constitution. It says the ERA is a proposed amendment to the U.S. Constitution that would explicitly prohibit sex discrimination. And even Wikipedia, which is not a reliable source, had to put in there as a second sentence, it is not currently a part of the Constitution, though its ratification status has long been debated. So this was written in 1923 by Alice Paul and Crystal Eastman. It was introduced to Congress in December of 1923. It gained some steam in the 1960s with women's rights, the women's movement in the U.S., but it really didn't get all of the steam that it really needed to go through the entire process to become an actual amendment of the Constitution. And I can only imagine the reason that they would want that amendment to be the case is for, I could be wrong, but I allege, I don't know, I think it would have to do something with the gender issues we've been having in this country in the last 8 years or so, transgender rights and all of that sort of thing. If you could codify it in the Constitution somehow, then maybe you could give it more legitimate legal footing or standing when it comes to arguing these different LGBTQIA, transgender, whatever arguments in court. But I found this to be bonkers because it seems odd to me that the President of the United States didn't understand that amendments aren't ratified and part of the Constitution as a result of personal decree via social media. I would imagine that as President of the United States, he would understand that there was a procedure and that, legislature there has to be 2/3 of the majority to agree, and then the states have to ratify it. This isn't something that he could just declare. That's why I wonder if toward the end of his presidency, if he simply had interns pushing buttons and sending out stuff, and he just kind of checked out. I don't see where or how he thought this was a good idea, unless all he was doing was creating a sort of legal hullabaloo, if you would. Get people talking, get lawyers posturing and doing what they can to see if they could move this forward in order for it to be a hindrance for Trump coming in. But I don't think that he was thinking that deeply about it. I think he literally just thought, oh, I am King Biden and I could just say something and it becomes a part of the law of the land.
Well, with all the pardons he granted, I guess you can say he's indeed King Biden. But you know what? The former president is 82 years old.
Yes, he is. That's a very nice way to say what I know you're about to say.
And he has been going through what we all knew since 2020. Sometimes he's lucid, sometimes he's not.
Right.
So give him a pass on this one.
What?
Give him a pass on this one. It's like, come on. It was the last couple of days of his presidency. He's trying to shore up his legacy. So he gave a bunch of pardons to everybody and their dog, including his brother and whoever else, Dr. Anthony Fauci and
General Milley.
Yeah, so
Cheney.
Give him a pass. One day somebody's going to look back and say, you know what? Even if it's only Hunter Biden, or somebody's going to look back and say, you know what? Thank you, President Biden. You gave me a second chance at freedom or whatever. And he tried. So, you know what? I'm going to give him a pass on this one. He's gone. Maybe we should say thank you for your service, maybe not. But whatever. He's 82. You probably forget that constitution amendments have to go through all these lengthy procedures.
You're being very magnanimous, MCG. Next thing you're going to tell me is that when he said that, he was there back in 1923 when they were
Probably was.
Even The Atlantic, which is a publication on the left, just flat out. It's funny how the gloves are off when it comes to the media and the Democrat Party now. They are not even pretending to put up a defense for him. The Atlantic is, I'll just read parts of this article here. Presidents typically spend their final days in the White House taking care of odds and ends, issuing pardons, signing some last executive orders, thanking staff. Joe Biden is doing all of those things and also trying to change the Constitution on his way out the door. This morning, at the time when he had initially posted that, which was about 2 days before the inauguration, Biden declared on X, formerly Twitter, that the Equal Rights Amendment is now the law of the land. Well, there you have it. I love the snarkiness. The Constitution has a 28th Amendment, and women's rights have been enshrined across the country. Or not. Biden can't change the Constitution because the Constitution doesn't allow him to. The fight for the ERA is older than the 82-year-old president. And I love how they're just putting those jabs in there. And it did not end with Biden's social media proclamation. So the lady that introduced it, Alice Paul, she was actually a part of the suffragist movement. And she first proposed it as an amendment in 1923. And in 1972, Congress approved and sent to the states a constitutional change summed up in 24 words. But when Congress does that, there's a time limit. I think there's like a 10 or 15-year time limit. So from the time Congress does that to 10 or 15 years, whatever it is, it might be here, let me look at it, 10 years, if the states have not ratified it, then it doesn't pass. And the states never ratified it. 1982 was when the clock ran out. It was never ratified. It was never a part of the Constitution. I have no idea where he thought that he could just declare it so.
Yeah, as I said, he's 82 years old. I'll give him a pass.
You know what? We'll give him a pass. He's on his way out the door. He left peacefully. And now we are unburdened by what has been. And we can move forward. I don't think anyone took him seriously. I do think, though, that this might have been some sort of attempt to complicate things. There was a scene in The Incredibles 2 where one of the bad guys is trying to evade the hero. And while he's trying to run out of the building, he's knocking on doors, pushing the fire alarm, activating all these different things, because each of those things is a hindrance to the hero catching him. And I think maybe that's what Biden is doing. He's just throwing out all of these things left and right, all these pardons and all of these declarations and all of these statements left and right that might try to be some sort of effort to slow Trump down. But I don't think it's going to work. It looks like that Trump is very much focused, and this is just a small blip on the radar, and everyone just looks at it like, oh, that's demented ramblings of an old man that we're not going to take seriously. And I find that incredibly sad, but still.
Yeah. His last hurrah, I guess.
His last hurrah, indeed.
All right.
Okay, what's your article?
I have another one here. Woke doctor refused to publish $10 million trans kid study that showed puberty blockers didn't help mental health. And this is from the New York Post. A prominent doctor and trans rights advocate admitted she deliberately withheld publication of a $10 million taxpayer-funded study on the effect of puberty blockers on American children, after finding no evidence that they improve patients' mental health. Dr. Joanna Olson Kennedy told the New York Times that she believes the study would be weaponized by critics of transgender care for kids, and that the research could one day be used in court to argue we shouldn't use blockers. Critics include one of Olson Kennedy's fellow researchers on the study, said the decision flies in the face of research standards and deprives the public of really important science in a field where Americans remain firmly divided. For the National Institute of Health funded study, researchers chose 95 kids who had an average age of 11 and gave them puberty blockers drugs starting in 2015.
Oh, goodness.
The treatment are meant to delay the onset of bodily change like development of breasts and the deepening of the voice. After following up with the youth for 2 years, the treatment did not improve the state of their mental health, which Olson Kennedy chalked up to kids being in really good shape, both when they started and concluded the 2-year treatment. However, the Times points out that her rosy assessment contradicts early data recorded by the researchers, which found around 1/4 of the study participants were depressed or suicidal before receiving the treatment. So, about 25% of them were depressed or suicidal before they started the treatment. And 2 years after they were on puberty blockers, there were absolutely no change. And because puberty blockers didn't improve their state, and of course it didn't change it neither. She decided, hey, this is going to be weaponized. We don't want to put this out to the public. So you're doing a scientific study, but you were willing to dispel your biases. However, they're the same ones that will look at us and tell us that we need to believe in science.
Mm-hmm.
They're the same one that tell us, hey, there can be 100 different genders. But now, when you do a study that affirm common sense, I don't know why we needed to spend $10 million on this of our taxpaying money, but we spent $10 million to reaffirm common sense, and yet they withheld the results.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
This is so triggering for me because, first of all, they'll tell us that they are the science. How many times did Anthony Fauci tell us that, right? And before anyone says, well, Anthony Fauci, he's a different type of doctor than this one, and he's not transgender and all that, but the attitude is still there that I'm a doctor, you're not. I know this and you don't. Sit down, be quiet, and we will determine what the science is, what we show you, what we don't, and what you should do. You don't need to see the truth. You don't need to see what we found. Just trust us, bro. We'll tell you how to live your life and how to stay healthy and how to blah, 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 blah. And we saw how that simply wasn't true in 2020. 2020, the pandemic was awful. Many people died. I'm not being glib about the toll financially, emotionally, civically, all of these different ways that it hurt us as a nation. So what I'm about to say, I'm not saying with glee, and I'm not saying it lightly either. I'm grateful for that entire thing that we went through, because even though it was difficult and even though we lost people and even though it was awful, we saw an unvarnished, raw picture of how these people think, the extent of the rot in our institutions, in our churches, in our communities, in our government. And now it's woken a lot of people up, where before we probably would have looked at a nutcase doctor like this and say, oh, well, doctors know what they're saying. They know what they're talking about. We can trust them. They have our best interests at heart. But what we need to realize is that literally all of the professions have been infiltrated with people who are activists first. So much so that they're willing to manipulate the data or hide data or not give you the full picture, all for the sake of whatever it is that they're worshiping at the altar of. In his case, this was a transgender doctor, right? In his case.
No, he wasn't a transgender doctor. He's a legitimate woman, biological woman.
Okay, a biological woman.
She's just an expert in...
Right. And in her case, this ideology, this altar that she was worshiping at was the altar of transgender ideology. And so parents who don't know any better were taking their children to their pediatricians and their general practitioners and saying, hey, this is an issue that I think my kids have. What should I do? And trusting them to give them the best way forward. And to be taken advantage of like that, I think in many ways is unforgivable. Not unforgivable. I mean, I should probably take that back. Not unforgivable in the sense that the doctor can't redeem themselves and do the right thing, but to take advantage of people who are trusting you and who are at a disadvantage because they don't know the literature like you do. They don't have the scientific background that you do is a really terrible thing. And I don't think we should take that very lightly. And now I think America as a whole is beginning to wake up and beginning to ask questions and beginning to push back and beginning to call these things out because people's lives are at stake. We're permanently altering children before they don't even know the difference between, I don't know, a dinosaur and a squirrel. Who knows? Kids are they can't make these kinds of decisions for themselves. I'm a grown woman having to make decisions about my health as a result of childbirth and everything. And sometimes I feel like I can't make heads or tails of anything. You want an 11-year-old child to understand what they are, how they feel, what their bodies are supposed to be? What kind of sense does that make? And so that really bothers me. That really gets under my skin. These are people that we're supposed to trust, and they clearly don't have our best interests at heart.
Well, the irony here is that she said she didn't want the study to be weaponized.
Right.
Against, the transgender movement. But by withholding it, she weaponized it against people that would oppose.
Exactly. Rules for thee and not for me.
Just release the study and let it be what it be. A mark of maturity is you being able to give new facts and you can change your mind.
Yeah.
if the study didn't agree with you, well, so the study didn't agree with me.
Right.
But anyways, you're listening to the Room with Barris podcast. We are talking about some bonkers articles. After all, this world has gone bonkers. We'll be right back.
Do you have the desire to earnestly contend for the faith which was once delivered unto the saints? Answers in Genesis can help. They provide biblically sound books, CDs, DVDs, homeschooling materials, VBS materials, online courses, digital downloads, and the Answers magazine, and more. Plus, tickets to the Creation Museum and Ark Encounter. Go to the Answers bookstore by clicking the link in the description section below, so you too can be ready to give an answer to anyone who asks the reason of the hope that is in you. Are you looking for a consistent and reliable place to get all your Christian materials? Try ChristianBook.com. Started from humble beginnings in 1978, ChristianBook.com now offers a wide range of books, CDs, DVDs, homeschooling, and church supplies, plus more. So whether you are a parent, a homeschooler, a pastor, or a layperson, ChristianBook.com can be a one-stop shop for all your needs. Click the link in the description section below and check out the vast array of Christian materials ChristianBook.com has to offer.
All right, Jay, do you have a third article for us?
Yes. My third article is from Yahoo News, which means it's from everywhere else because it's probably an aggregate. Virginia House passes resolutions protecting abortion, voting rights, and marriage equality. And of course, by marriage equality, they're referring to same-sex marriage. This is coming from the AP in Richmond. The Virginia House of Delegates passed resolutions on Tuesday, which is probably a week before the inauguration, enshrining rights to abortion, voting, and marriage equality in a critical step for Democrats hoping to amend the state's constitution next year. The chamber, where Democrats hold a razor-thin 51-49 majority, advanced the three proposed constitutional amendments Tuesday, while sister resolutions work their way through the Senate. Unlike other bills, proposed constitutional amendments are not subject to vetoes by the governor, but they must be twice passed in at least 2 years, with a legislative election sandwiched between each legislative session. After that, the public can vote by referendum on the issues. If the abortion ballot measure is ultimately successful, Virginia would become a rare southern state to join a growing trend of states putting a reproductive rights-related ballot questions to the voters. Quote, "I trust our Virginia voters," said Democrat Majority Leader Charniel Herring, patron of the amendment protecting abortion. "It seems like the other side of the aisle does not." In a lively debate, Republicans blasted the proposed amendment to protect abortion, which passed along party lines. Republican Delegate Mark Early described the resolution as a failure to recognize the image of God in fetuses. "This resolution is not only extreme," and it is, he said on the House floor, "but the real problem with it is that it's fundamentally misguided because it refuses to open its eyes to the lives and futures of children." Democratic Delegate Candy Munden King called for lawmakers to recognize the lives of women caught in life-threatening pregnancies in a scathing rebuke of Republicans' arguments. Okay, let's pause there for a second. There is no argument on the left that is viable when they say that an abortion is necessary for life-threatening pregnancies. They want women to think that an abortion is an actual procedure done to treat an illness or some type of physiology gone wrong. But that's not the case. An abortion is never medically necessary. If you're treating a woman with a reproductive issue, and in treating her, it results in the death of the fetus, that's not an abortion. That's an unfortunate, I can't think of the word, but let's just use the term side effect of you trying to go in to fix this reproductive issue. There's no reason to actually go in there and kill the child and scrape the child out, and that would solve any sort of reproductive issue that the woman might be having. But they would have women believe that abortion is care, which is why they always using the word care. And I think women are confused by that, and they are thinking that this is necessary when it's not. Recently, women have come to realize how birth control has had a net negative effect on the physiology, particularly hormonally, the physiology of women. But the pill is enshrined as the most important technology in the last century for women. It's enshrined in our history books. It's enshrined in our academic institutions of how important this thing is that allowed women to be free and women to, be free from the shackles of patriarchy or whatever they're telling us. But only now we're beginning to realize the negative effect of taking a drug that could suppress and manipulate the hormonal drive and cycle in women and how it's actually done women harm. But we're only finding this out decades later, decades after it's been championed as some sort of women's liberating technology. So we've been lied to all of this time. Those of us that didn't believe it, we're all looking at it like, oh yeah, we could have told you that. But for the overwhelming majority of American women, they've been lied to and they believed it. Why should we believe them when they tell us that an abortion is a medically necessary for any reproductive issue? Why should we believe them? They've been lying to us this whole time. Anyway, I'll continue. As from the article that you read before, that you brought up before, they don't tell women the truth. They say miscarriage, and when you take the pill, it's just like a heavy period. And I say again, having experienced miscarriages, it's nothing like a heavy period. Nothing like that. Why do you lie to women? I'll continue here. It says, quote, let's pass this resolution. The Democratic delegate, Candy Munden's King still speaking. Let's pass this resolution so that the people who probably couldn't find a uterus with a map are not making decisions about women's health care. Let's pause there for a second. She's obviously talking about men. And one of the recurring themes that we hear is that men can't make decisions about women's bodies, and it's not the man's issue, and it's not his business what I do with my body. But it takes a man and a woman to create a child. That child is every bit as much his as he is yours. And that child is not you. That child has his or her own DNA. You can't do what you want with that child. I don't care what the left or the government or your textbooks or your feminist sociology teacher told you. That child is not yours to dispose of as you see fit. So to say, oh, these people probably couldn't find a uterus with a map, that doesn't matter. If these people are so dumb as you're seeking to have us believe, why are you sleeping with them? Why are you creating children with them? Why are you creating this problem? And then you have an issue when someone holds you to account because you're not holding yourself to account. You'd rather kill the baby than to face the consequences that comes with this sexual freedom that you've been seeking. And we're supposed to, as a society, just be okay with this? And we're the ones that are crazy? We're the deplorables? We're the weird ones? I don't understand that line of thinking. The only universe in which that line of thinking makes sense is in the universe where you have this victim mentality and the oppression of the women, the patriarchy, and all this nonsense that they would have us to believe, which the country has repudiated and kicked back against in definite fashion. It just boggles my mind that these aren't people speaking in 2016, 2008. They're still talking like this today. They're still in our government halls, in our senates, in our legislatures, in our justice system, and in all of our institutions. They still talk and believe this. So I'll say one more thing and then I'll get off my soapbox. We shouldn't think that because many people got the political outcome that they wanted in 2024, 2025, with the inauguration and the installation of Donald Trump as president, we shouldn't think that somehow this thing is over. The enemy will strike back. The enemy will come back even harder. And we mustn't let our guard down because they still want to kill babies. They still want to destroy the image of God in our young children, giving them puberty blockers and confusing them and prying them away from the truth of the gospel and the truth of general revelation. The devil wants nothing more than to destroy our children, and we shouldn't let our guard down. I shall step off of my box now. Continuing in the article. Elsewhere, since 2022, 18 questions have gone before voters across the United States, and they have sided with abortion rights advocates 14 times. The voters have approved constitutional amendments ensuring the right to abortion until fetal viability in 9 states: Arizona, California, Colorado, Maryland, Michigan, Missouri, Montana, Ohio, and Vermont. Voters also passed a right to abortion measure in Nevada in 2024, but it must be passed again in 2026 to be added to the state constitution. Democratic lawmakers in both chambers said on Tuesday that the constitutional amendments were central to their legislative agenda this year. In a news conference with Virginia Black legislators, Senator Jennifer Carroll Foy said the amendments were critical for the state to shatter inequality. I'd like to pause there for a second. What in the world does inequality have to do with anything?
I don't know.
That have to do with abortion, let's say. What does it have to do with anything? Virginia has been going backward for far too long, she said. We understand that we were the home... Here we go. We were the home of segregation, of slavery, of Jim Crow, and now we are forward-facing and forward-moving along. So we need to ensure that our Virginia Constitution reflects our values here in Virginia. Yeah, we had slavery in this state. We had Jim Crow. We were backward, but now we're so forward, we're okay with murdering our babies.
Well, I guess that's what they mean by equality.
That's what they mean by progress, too. Progressives, right?
Because, as a per capita, I think Black women have more abortions than any other group. If you go by raw numbers, they don't. But if you go by the percentage of the population, they have more abortions. So I guess if more Black women are able to abort their babies, that will free them up to continue their career, whatever. I don't know. Their logic is warped.
Completely warped. And our job isn't done. Our work isn't done. We still need to be talking to our neighbors. We still need to be engaging the young women. We still need to be reaching out to them with the gospel to let them know what the truth is, because these people are not telling them the truth. And I'm concerned that decades will go by and we'll come to realize, oh no, we've been killing all of our babies. And now we're in the pickle that we're in now. I don't think America has hit that point yet.
Well, it starts with the gospel, seeing these people saved, and then, marriage and doing stuff the right way. 85% of abortions happen to girls that are not married. Mm-hmm. So that tells you everything you need to do right there. And a lot of them actually use abortion as birth control. Mm-hmm. So
many of them think that that's synonymous, actually.
So, I don't like, not that I'm promoting these things, but I don't like to use things to prevent it. So if it happens, I can just get an abortion.
Yeah.
So anyways, my other article as we go into the home stretch here is majority, and this is from the Christian Post, majority of practicing Christians admit to viewing porn, many comfortable with the habit.
Oh my.
The study shows. And it reads, a majority of practicing Christians, including pastors, admit to viewing pornography, and a large share say they are comfortable with the habit, a new study has found. So if you think, of course, this world has gone bonkers just because of what the unsaved and sinners are doing out there, this world is probably bonkers more so because Christians are not being salt and light as they should be.
Yeah.
In Banner's recent release research report, Beyond the Porn Phenomenon, produced in partnership with Pure Desire Ministries, researchers found that pornography use is so prevalent among all demographics, and the gap in use among Christians and non-Christians, as well as men and women, has grown narrower over the last 8 years. Even the practicing Christians were still found to view pornography less frequently than non-Christians. The gap between the two groups was only 14 percentage points. Some 54% of Christians reported viewing pornography compared to 68% of non-Christians. Notice says here, 54% of Christians report viewing pornography.
Wow.
In general, 75% of Christian men, and 40% of Christian women reported consuming porn on some level. Despite the church's stance against lust generally, it seems little progress has been made to deter many of these who fill the pews from pornography consumption. Specifically, researchers said, the gap between professed beliefs and actual behavior raised a question about the efficacy of current approaches within faith communities. The study noted that in the last 8 years, since the report was first published, the rapid shift in the cultural and digital landscape has compounded issues in the church with pornography and unwanted sexual behavior. Beyond the Porn Phenomenon represents a sobering call to realize our collective struggle has not improved. In spite of some initial steps to bring health to the church. The average Christian is not experiencing freedom in this area. 75% of Christian men and 40% of Christian women report that they are viewing pornography at least occasionally. Nick Stumbo, executive director of Pure Desire Ministries, said, noting that the statistics for pornography use among today's youngest adults, Gen Z, are even worse. What may be more troubling is that well over half of Christians who use porn said they are comfortable with their porn use. The reality for those who struggle in the church is that they too often feel like they are alone. When asked who's helping you with your struggle with pornography, a staggering 82% of Christians said no one. Isolation is the enemy's background, Stumber said. The Pure Desire Ministries leader said the church needs to be the place where people can get free from the troubling habit that many Christians have now accepted. Some 62% of individuals surveyed in the study in general expressed comfort with their level of porn consumption. Another 16% said they had some reservation about it, but said they found moderate levels of use acceptable. This group still wish they did not use pornography as frequently. The study further highlighted how comfortable people have become with pornography, as only 14% expressed a desire to kick the habit entirely.
Of all the people that participated in this survey, only 14% want to stop.
Yep.
Wow. And 40% of women.
Yep. It's sad. The Bible tells us that our body is the temple of God. Back in the day, when you had to go to the stop and rob store, which is the convenience stores, and pay for those kind of things over the counter or whatever the case may be, or go to the video store and try to sneakily rent those things. It was a little bit harder, but now the advancement of technology.
It's in the palm of your hand.
Yep, your cell phones and whatever else personal device you have. It make it quite easy. And not only that, soft pornography is in our news articles and all the stuff. They put it before your eyes. You might be reading an innocent article that have some scantily dressed ladies in front of you or something like that. But it's really sad, and I'm lost for words of what the church can do about this. I know parents, I can say, look, wait very long before you give your kids these devices. 11-year-olds and 8-year-olds and 10-year-olds or whatever the case may be. I don't think they need an iPad and an iPhone and smartphone and this like that. At least not without some strict monitoring and stuff like that. But it's sad when you think about it. It's not even so much so that they're struggling with this thing. It's that they're comfortable with it.
Right.
That means that their conscience has been snared.
Yeah.
The Holy Ghost no longer prick their hearts against this thing because it's hardened in that area. That means they have been doing it for so long that,
That's a dangerous place to be.
And not only that, the isolation that they talk about, because recently, I'm sure you saw this on the internet, recently, I don't remember the name of the company, but they came up with this robot that basically look real, like a real human being. And the robot is equipped with AI, and they say, hey, this robot is for companionship. So it's someone you can talk to, someone who can understand your feeling. The AI is so advanced that they will be able to understand your feelings and all that stuff, and someone you can talk to. And someone asks, does this robot provide any other services beyond, talking to them or whatever the case may be? And I can guarantee you, even though that robot now doesn't provide those kind of favors, it's not going to be long before it leads to that.
Sure.
Because, there's a lot of detachment. There's a lot of lack of interaction because we have these devices, again, that force us to communicate, not in person. But anyways, it's a really sad article. We can hop on it in many different directions, but it's just really sad. I'm going to continue. Gen Z, those individuals born between 1999 and 2015, were the least likely to say they were comfortable using pornography. Nearly half, 49% of practicing Christians who are also porn users said they were comfortable with their level of use compared to 73% of non-Christians. Another 21% expressed a desire to completely abstain. Still, a majority of U.S. adults believe that regular porn use, which most use for arousal, has no impact on their overall sexual health and claim they can regularly view porn and live a sexually healthy life.
But we know that's not true.
Yeah, the devil has them fooled.
Yeah.
This view is held most strongly by men, 75%, agree than women, 59%. Practicing Christians are less likely to agree compared to the general population. Still, more than half of practicing Christians, 55%, agree a person can regularly view pornography and live a sexually healthy life. Researchers noted, additionally, a majority of U.S. adults, 60%, agree that watching pornography can improve a person's sex life. This sentiment is shared by almost half of practicing Christians, 48%. Besides using porn for personal arousal, Christians report engaging in the habit to set a mood with a romantic partner. Non-practicing Christians and non-Christians are more likely than practicing Christians to use porn because they are bored or because they find it entertaining. Perhaps more interesting, however, are other motivations that don't differ significantly across the faith groups. Christian and non-Christians are just as likely to chalk up their porn use to being curious, looking for sex tips, or relieving stress and anxiety, researchers note. To help churches address the pornography problem among the pews, researchers encourage leaders to, among other things, partner with experts, prioritize education and awareness, and create safe spaces for people to get real. Ultimately, the church is meant to be a source of hope for people facing all sorts of challenges in life, including struggles with pornography. By addressing this issue head-on with care, understanding, and practical support, churches can fulfill their roles as places of healing and restoration. They said, even small steps towards openness and support can make a significant impact in the lives of those struggling. And that's the end of the article. But at the end of the day, I just say one word, it's really sad that what's going on. And of course, I think the church can do more. And again, it's also upon the Christians to be in the word, surrendered, casting all imaginations and every high thing that exalt themselves on the Christ, under the blood of Christ. But I guess it's just how light they are to it. Mm-hmm. If they were broken by the fact that they use it, I guess you can say, man, I can really help this person. But they use it and they're not broken. You have to get them to the point of being broken. Mm-hmm. But then at the same time, you have to wonder, they say they're Christians, but are they truly saved? I guess it's not for me to judge at that point. But anyways, yeah. Do you have any dishonorable mentions?
I have one that is a dishonorable mention that I think perhaps we should probably keep an eye out for. The title of this article is Asmongold versus Elon Musk takes a new unexpected turn. Now, Asmongold is the screen name, if you would, of a Twitch streamer. Twitch, for those of us that don't know, is just an online gaming platform. But yes, you heard right. Elon Musk is in a beef war online with a Twitch streamer. Now, I won't go into reading the article because it goes in talking about all of these different video games and Comic-Con and things that perhaps regular people don't know or care about. But I found it to be incredibly odd that the richest man in the world and probably the most brilliant man in the world, CEO of like 5 different companies that are making real life significant changes in our society and in our world today, on a mission to go to Mars, is wasting his time participating in online beef with a video gamer, an online video gamer. It all started when this gamer accused Elon of not being truthful about his online gaming claims. I think Elon Musk claimed that he was the best player in a game called, I think, Diablo or Diablo 2. And this gamer, Asmongold, went in, looked at whatever metrics that he needs to look at to make this determination and said, oh, no, there's no way that he's actually playing. He bought a profile and is just beefing it up through automated means, and he's not really playing. And so there's this back and forth. Well, ultimately, Asmongold's check mark on Twitter, I think it was like the blue check, was removed. And many people saw that it was in retaliation to his detective work on Elon Musk. And there's this back and forth. And Elon Musk is saying, oh, no, that was a result of something else completely unrelated. And it was quickly reinstituted, and all this back and forth. There are 2 things I'm pulling from this. Number one, that Elon has time to partake in this with an online gamer, but also the fact that we should be on our toes and still be vigilant and aware. Even though Elon Musk was instrumental in stemming the tide against the ideology of the left, first of all, that he was outspoken against censorship and against the fight, you could say, against freedom of speech that was being waged on the entire country by the left. He stood up against that. He bought X at a price and at a time that was completely disadvantageous for him. participating in the opposition party against the left. So he was very much instrumental in bringing about the change that we've seen politically in our country in the last year or two. So I'm not taking any of that away. However, he is still very much a very, very rich man, the richest man in the world, maybe one of the second richest men in the world. He's still someone that wields incredible power and influence, and he owns the platform which houses the transfer and the marketplace of ideas, which is Twitter, or X, I should say. We should be wary because he is susceptible to the corruption of power like anyone else. And even in this little spat between him and a Twitch streamer, he has shown that he is capable of suppressing the person just because he doesn't like him or he's in a spat with him. And so we shouldn't think that our freedom of speech is somehow secure because Elon Musk bought X. We should be on our toes. We should be vigilant. We shouldn't deify anyone and think that they're trustworthy and on our side forever. Everyone is corruptible by the ring of power, for those of you that know the Lord of the Rings reference, but everyone is corruptible, easily corrupted by power, and we should keep us on our toes. I think it was petty that he would involve himself with that, but I think it also serves to warn us to be vigilant.
Yeah, I say put all that aside. How old is this guy?
Who, the Twitch streamer? Oh, maybe he can't be more than 40.
40?
He can't be older than 40.
It's a bigger problem
30s.
I have with this.
That he's a gamer.
No.
20, 30-something-year-old still gaming.
Not so much that he's a gamer, is that you have a 40-year-old man or whatever and a 50-something-year-old man arguing over gaming. Come on, give me a break. Yeah. Nothing else matters besides the fact that these are grown men arguing over this thing. You're like,
yeah,
there's so much more things I can find to do rather than arguing over video games. Whether you're a gamer or not, I'm sure you probably would agree. But
we're in a crisis of manhood, right? You know,
and they don't seem to be epitome of what he should be. Anyways, I leave that there.
Dishonorable mention, yours.
All right, this is from the Washington Post. After a long wait for an egg, keepers discovered Maggie, the penguin, is male.
What?
So these are some keepers, I guess zookeepers.
Mm-hmm.
They have been waiting for this penguin to produce an egg for a long time.
Okay.
And they finally discovered the reason why the penguin is not producing any egg because it's male. Look, I think I can say I grew up on a farm, and you usually know very quickly which animal is a male or female. No, agreed, within birds, a little bit harder to tell.
No, in most cases with birds.
Some of them.
Okay.
Some of them.
I was going to say, among all God's creatures, birds have some of the most significant sexual dimorphism. Like the males look very different from the females.
Some of them. So I can give them a pass, I guess. But man, if you're in this field, you should at least know.
At least know if you're in that field, for sure.
Anyways, another one. This is from the New York Post. Serial bank robber begs federal judge to keep him locked up after a string of Florida thefts. He said, "I love the life I have in prison. Keep me in jail because I love the life I have there."
Oh, boy.
Maybe we need to make our prison a little bit less like hotels and more like prisons.
A little less like the jails in Mayberry where you have doilies and it's all set up to where people actually feel like home in the jail. That's crazy.
Yeah, anyways. And the last one I have, Bill Gates plays God again. This is from the Gateway Pundit.
There we go.
And he funds project that is turning mosquitoes into flying vaccinators. So you people living in Florida where it doesn't get cold and stuff like that, and you think you're going to refuse the vaccine, well, Bill Gates is going to let go some mosquitoes down there that will give it a vaccine anyway.
So they're going to, inoculate the mosquitoes and then they fly around and bite people? And I
think they're going to maybe do some kind of genetic modification and whatever the case may be. You can read the article, it's not going to be pundit. Anyways, the question begs, as we always ask, do you agree with us? Do you agree with us that this world is bonkers? Well, what are you doing about it? President Trump is now the president of the United States, and this world is still bonkers. What are you going to do about it? Well, my encouragement for you is to saturate your Jerusalem with the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Yes.
Go out there and preach the word. In season, out of season. And let folks know, hey, Jesus Christ came and died for your sin. That they are sinners in need of a savior. That they're not here by chance, but they're here by a creator God who created heaven and earth and loved them. So much so that he sent his son to die on the cross for their sins because they are sinners.
Amen.
Anyways, we'll leave it there.
Thank you so much for listening to the Removing Barriers podcast. Make sure to rate us everywhere you listen to podcasts, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Stitcher. Removing Barriers, a clear view of the cross.
Thank you for listening. To get a hold of us, to support this podcast, or to learn more about Removing Barriers, go to removingbarriers.net. This has been the Removing Barriers podcast. We attempted to remove barriers so that we all can have a clear view of the cross.